Okay, all here is the video for the final. Know what Title 9 is of the Civil Rights Act, and I also want you to know what Title 7 is of the Civil Rights Act. Remember, Title 7 prohibits discrimination in hiring from the through the Civil Rights Act. So remember that. Uh, know that Title 9 of the Education Employment Act of 1972 bars discrimination in college athletics. So be aware of that. Know the largest ethnic minority here in the United States, and it's Latinos. Know the Urban League and NAACP. These are two of the oldest civil rights organizations here in the United States. Um, and the NAACP was created with the goal of trying to integrate blacks into existing society, and it was founded back in 1909. Know that you know we even though we still had the 14th Amendment, why do we still have Jim Crow laws? Um, Basically we still had Jim Crow laws because people weren't enforcing the law. Simple as that. And one way that desegregation was accomplished was through military force. The National Guard and the National Guard being called up to enforce the law. Um, no Martin Luther King, nonviolent action, and trying to create a civil disobedience where you try to draw attention to things that you might see to be as unfair, and you can't ignore it. Know the terms feminism, postmodern feminism, equity feminism. Feminism originally started because men were going out and beating their wives and gambling and visiting prostitutes and getting drunk, and that was one of the things that led to um, the feminist movements that happened. Um, like I said, no postmodern feminism and radical feminism. Um, know the differences of those two. Know what Now is, and Now is the largest organization for feminist rights, the National Organization of Women. Um, know that there's about 70% of women that are in the workforce, right? And we found out a lot of it has to do with the fact that you need two incomes, and also women are capable. Um, Again, going back to the feminist questions, know what postmodern feminism, which focuses on trying to have concerns with the masculine modes in a patriarchal ideology, and also radical feminism as well. Let me see. Okay, going to civil liberties. Know what Levin versus Kurtzman is? That's basically you can't use public money to fund religious education. Know what Gitlow versus New York? Remember, Gitlow creates the clear and present danger standard. Your speech isn't protected unless it creates a clear and present danger. Know the Miller case. The Miller case dealt with obscenities, and you have that three-pronged test where you can determine whether or not something is obscene. Know what Matt versus Ohio is and how it relates to our Fourth Amendment privileges, and it protects our Fourth Amendment privileges, establishes what's called the exclusionary rule, which means that if any evidence through an illegal search is obtained, that can't be used in trial. The evidence is going to be disqualified. Know what Gideon versus Wainwright is, and how Gideon versus Wainwright basically says that anytime we're charged with a crime, we're entitled to an attorney. Know what Miranda versus Arizona is. It's simple. Things we don't want to hear. If we hear the Miranda rights, that means we're being arrested. The police have to inform us about our rights so we do not self-incriminate ourselves. Right? The whole right to remain silent. Know the Griswold case. Griswold versus Connecticut. I remember Griswold was arrested for providing birth control information to a married couple. And out of the Griswold case, we got a newfound right to privacy by combining some amendments together. Um, and also another Korematsu case where, he was interned because he was Japanese American. And the Supreme Court found that the internment was legal because it wasn't based on race. It was based on a military necessity, and we all know that is not the case. Okay, next, when we talk about public policy, know about Social Security, how Social Security is the biggest item in the budget. And there's ideas about capping entitlements. Both the left and the right want to cap entitlements, but the thing is that they can't agree on what those caps mean. Know about Social Security taxes and Medicare taxes. We talked a little bit about that, where these taxes are paid half by the employee and half by the employers, and it's something that the employer has to pay and has to take into consideration when they are doing a budget or setting something up. The federal government know how they finance themselves. It's usually through individual income tax and Social Security payroll tax. Remember, we kind of took a look and said that corporate tax doesn't really, in a sense, maybe pay their fair share of times. So kind of, to try to do that and try to maybe make that statement. But yeah, one of the arguments is that if corporate taxes were higher, they wouldn't be able to hire workers. So it's kind of a catch-22 that we have. Know what the Federal Reserve is and how the Federal Reserve is the persons that control our money supply. Don't worry about capital gains tax, but do know property tax is 1% of our assessed value. Okay, for Reagan, know what voodoo economics is. That is basically supply-side economics. And when Reagan entered the presidency, he had problems with inflation and unemployment. So one of the things he did was, institute what's called trickle-down economics or supply-side economics, or as George H.W. Bush called it, voodoo economics. I think that's kind of self-explanatory what he meant there, trying to do something weird with the economy. There's kind of confusion or differencing of opinion on how, supply-side economics, does it truly work or doesn't? Who knows? Know about the Iran-Contra affair and what the Bullitt Amendment was. Remember, the Bullitt Amendment specifically prohibited the funding of this anti-communist group in Nicaragua. Basically, what happened was the United States sold arms to Iran and then used the profits to fund an anti-communist group in Nicaragua. As part of Reagan's policy, he cut social welfare. He cut taxes. He cut social welfare, but he increased increased military spending, and that's what led to a large deficit. And by the time he left office, we had a pretty big deficit. Know who Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North is? He was one of the ones that was involved in the Iran-Contra affair. Know about California's education budget. We spend more money on prisoners than we do students here, and we talked a little bit about that in class. Know about water. We'll definitely watch a video about water. And one of the contentious issues is that there's private ownership of water, and we talked a little bit about should there be, should water be a public commodity or should be able to be sold and stuff like that. Kind of going back to the education budget, remember that a lot of our budget goes toward, teacher salaries. And also, a lot of this education budget is derived from property tax, like Prop 13, which affects property tax. And it limits property tax to 1% of the assessed value of the property. Don't worry too much about policy steps. We didn't get to that. When we talk about budget reflects directives of the president, that's what we talk about when we talk about implementation of a budget. Usually the budget implementation is the development of a procedure and kind of the activities to carry out what the president wants. Okay, so that's what we got. If you have any questions, definitely let me know.